Chargers hired even more coaches. Yes, Jim Harbaugh is still filling out this coaching staff with not only coaches on offense and defense, but strength and conditioning coaches as well. And yes, that also means more guys from Michigan, but also some guys from the previous staff have been officially retained. So make sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this content, bro. It helps me out so much. And let's start off with this strength and conditioning staff. Now, Ben Herbert from Michigan, he is obviously the head of this whole operation here, but his official title is Executive Director of Player Performance. And we all knew that Ben Herbert would be coming along, but what is important to note here is that title. They gave him a fancy new title with the word executive in it because they're actually retaining Jonathan Brooks as head strength and conditioning coach from last year. Now, Jonathan Brooks must have impressed Jim Harbaugh or even Ben Herbert with his interview because he's the only one from that strength and conditioning staff this past season that is being kept. And a lot of Chargers fans probably think that that is a good thing because the Chargers, they have struggled with injuries for like the past decade, and they needed to have a total rehaul of this strength and conditioning staff. But Jonathan Brooks, he's going into his 8th season with the Chargers, and his job, it's basically helping program design, designing the programs for the players, and helping execute the program, and then help work with any specific players or position groups aside from the group in terms of what they need specifically. The Chargers have struggled with injuries for so long, and if this guy gets the okay from Ben Herbert to stick around, then you know what? I trust him. Ben Herbert also brought 3 more strength and conditioning coaches, all from Michigan. Nobody surprised there. Devin Woodhouse, he's going to be the head strength and conditioning coach. And he spent some time with the Chiefs, with Wisconsin, and then even with the Dallas Football Club, the soccer team. And then Ben Rabe is going to be the director of performance analytics. And he was an intern for Michigan before working his way up on that strength staff at Michigan these past 5 seasons. And Lincoln DeWolf will be the performance analyst, and he is a recent grad from Michigan, but as a student, he was the data analyst for the strength staff, and then last season, he was the associate director of performance analytics. So 2 analytics guys are going to be joining this strength staff, which is something new for the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh. He wants to optimize every aspect of the players and the staff, and I think that's the reason why you hire some analytics guys in this position, you know, in the strength staff, in the weight room. It's to optimize the players' training and minimize the injury through data. And Jim Harbaugh has said before that he is embracing how the NFL has changed since he has been in the NFL. And one of the ways it has changed is through analytics. Just listen to what he had to say on the herd.
The analytics piece, the reports, the study, I think that's grown. I mean, even 10, 15 years ago, coaches sitting around watching the tape, putting in the game plan. It's been aided so much by reports, analytics, of what coaches should watch, the tendencies, all play callers have in their DNA, but to really be able to hone in on it.
So that is the new strength and conditioning staff, but there are several more coaches that were added. And on offense, the first one is Phil Serchia, who was actually retained from the coaching staff this past season. He was just hired last year. He is an offensive assistant, and he is a former offensive lineman, and his job is to do breakdowns, draw up runs and protections, and help out the offensive line coach, who this year it's Mike Devlin and Nick Hardwick, the assistant offensive line coach. Bro, I'm so excited to see Nick Hardwick get back on this team as a coach. But now this is really interesting to me because we have 3 coaches that specialize specifically in the offensive line. It's Phil Serchia, Nick Hardwick, and Mike Devlin all in that O-line room. So we know that Jim Harbaugh and the staff, the Chargers in entirety, they are all focused on really dedicating resources to this offensive line. They've dedicated 3 freaking coaches just to this position group. And speaking of Nick Hardwick, bro, the former Pro Bowl center on this coaching staff, he has been officially announced as the assistant offensive line coach, but Jim Harbaugh has added another Pro Bowl center in Jonathan Goodwin. He is the offensive assistant / quarterbacks coach. Jonathan Goodwin played for the 49ers for 3 years under Jim Harbaugh, and he won the Super Bowl with the Saints in 2009. He's going to help out Shane Day with the quarterbacks, but centers, you know, they're usually very smart offensive linemen, and I imagine that he's going to help Justin Herbert identify where pressure is coming from pre-snap and what protections to call in order to counter what he sees. I mean, that's what Nick Hardwick was so good at, but that is one area that Justin Herbert could get better at, and I would imagine that having a former Pro Bowl and 2-time Super Bowl starting center helping you call out protections, that's as good of help as you can get. The next new hire is Jeff Carpenter. He was hired as the offensive quality control coach and the wide receivers coach, and he was an analyst at Virginia Tech for these past 2 seasons, but he's worked with multiple positions like the offensive line at LSU, wide receivers at Penn State where he coached Jahan Dotson, and a quarterbacks coach at Bryant University. He's going to help out Sanjay Lal with the wide receivers. And last year, Virginia Tech was a very run-dominant team, and they had almost 190 yards rushing per game and almost 30 points per game. So maybe he's going to be focused on coaching those wide receivers to block in the run game, while Sanjay Lal is going to be focused more on helping those wide receivers in the passing game. Just something to think about. Now on defense, they are retaining Mike Hiestand, who last year was the front 7 specialist. He's a former linebacker and coached under that Vic Fangio tree and worked with Brandon Staley in Denver. I know a lot of you guys are not going to like that. This is a Brandon Staley guy. But this year, he's going to be given the title of defensive assistant, and I'm assuming that he is going to keep the same responsibilities going forward, which is primarily working with the inside linebackers. He is a former linebacker in college football, and that's probably what he's going to continue to do, coach those inside linebackers. Now, the last coach that they have hired is Will Tukuafu, who is the assistant defensive line coach. He spent the last 3 seasons coaching the defensive line for the Seahawks, but this is another former NFL player that played with Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco. That is 3 players now. Navarro Bowman, he's going to be the linebackers coach. Jonathan Goodwin, the offensive assistant / QB coach. And now Will Tukuafu, man. He played both offense and defense in the NFL because he was used as a fullback at times. But I love what Jim Harbaugh is doing with this coaching staff, man, and giving these former players positions because it helps to be coached by someone who has been in your position before and knows what the players are going through. Will Tukuafu, during his playing time with the Niners and then later on with the Seahawks, he was known for his physicality, and he was definitely one of those guys that had that mentality aspect that Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz have been talking about. And you know, Jim Harbaugh, he has hired so many freaking coaches. I mean, he could still add some more. I don't know if this coaching staff is entirely filled out, but this is the biggest coaching staff that I can remember as a Chargers fan. I mean, they have 29 coaches right now, when last year they had 20. So again, this just goes to show that Dean Spanos is letting Jim get all of his guys in here, and he's totally bought into this Harbaugh experience. And I am extremely excited for this coaching staff because there are a ton of good freaking hires in here, man, that I think it's going to work out really well. And the new running backs coach is one of those hires that I think is going to work out really well. And you can check out this video right here to see why.